in a second. Okay, we're good to go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Hannah Abraham, and do you introduce yourself?
And I'm Matthew Reed.
We are Group 4 and we are presenting Log4Shell. So what is Log4Shell? Log4Shell is a major security flow in a software tool called Log4j, which is a popular tool for logging data in Java applications. Log4Shell vulnerability um, lets attackers run any code that they want on a system from remote locations. So, in other words, an attacker doesn't need to physically have access to a computer or server. They can send commands over the internet that the vulnerable system will execute. This can give attackers full control over the system. So, why is this important? Many applications and services use Log4j, so attackers being able to exploit it to access systems without permission puts millions of systems at risk.
All right, so just for an overview for Log4j itself and the vulnerability Log4Shell. Log4j is an open source library developed by Apache. It's used for logging Java applications, and it is widely used across multiple industries, mainly for its ease of use and simplicity. Log4Shell is a critical remote code execution found in certain versions of the Apache Log4j library. So it allows attackers to execute arbitrary code on effective systems, and it gives them potentially full control over applications and devices. This can be easily exploited by sending specially crafted requests to vulnerable systems, leading to unauthorized access, data breaches, and other malicious activities. So a bit more about Log4j. It's used to make error tracking easier in applications. It logs user activity and application behavior, and it helps developers monitor how systems work, fix errors, and improve performance. Because of how widely used it is in software applications, this vulnerability has posed a serious risk just due to the sheer scope of affected systems and environments.
So, how Log4Shell works? Attackers exploit the Log4Shell vulnerability through a process that involves sending crafted data to systems using Log4j. So, with data injection, the attacker sends malicious strings of data that include specific commands designed to exploit the vulnerability. This data can be delivered through various vectors, such as user input fields, API request, or any input that gets logged in by Log4j. So, the logging process, when Logging4j library processes this incoming data, it attempts to log the information. However, due to the vulnerability, Log4j does not properly validate the input. Instead of treating the incoming data as plain text, Log4j interprets the malicious string as an executable code, and as a result, Log4j, without knowledge, runs this code on the server. So this little diagram over here, it shows a possible infection chain. And so this infection chain outlines how attackers exploit the Log4Shell vulnerability in the Apache Log4j. So it starts with the initial exploit. Um, this is a malicious request that exploits the vulnerability of a vulnerable server, allowing remote code execution. And then there's the payload delivery, where attackers drop different payloads depending on the server, Unix or Windows. And then the outcome is that it can lead to threats like ransomware. Okay.
So the main motives behind the exploitation were that attackers used this vulnerability to gain some form of unauthorized access into systems. Goals could vary from individual to individual, as this is a general vulnerability exploited by a multitude of different people. These goals could include installing malware, stealing sensitive data, and taking full control of servers. Log4Shell was especially attractive to cyber criminals because it allowed them to bypass security easily and quickly compromise important systems. So the potential actions taken with access is that once inside, through a Log4Shell exploitation, virtually any kind of code could be run on a compromised server. This would allow any attacker to spread through networks, installing ransomware, gaining higher organizational access levels. Data could be encrypted for ransom, confidential information stolen, or essential services disruption, leading to severe security and operational risks. So the two main objectives of attackers were profit, usually through some form of ransomware. These are usually independent cyber criminals, or maybe ransomware as a service, or different uh, for-profit groups. Or in the case of foreign nation state attacks, disruption of critical infrastructure was the main objective. So it depended on who it was attacking.
So, who was the target of their attack? Uh, the vulnerability affected several industries, given the widespread use of the library across several applications and systems. Government agencies, healthcare institutions, financial services, and tech corporations were the most impacted sectors. These businesses rely on Java based applications for many activities, such as data management, processing, and even financial transactions. Government networks manage sensitive citizen data, whereas healthcare companies maintain private patient records, making them particularly tempting targets for cyber criminals. The vulnerability's widespread applicability caused immediate and severe risks in these businesses, as attackers may have used it to interrupt services, steal sensitive data, and corrupt essential systems. The common characteristics of the targets are any organizations using Java based applications or platforms were at risk. Cloud services, online platforms, and applications that relied on Log4j were especially vulnerable due to their high accessibility and data sensitivity. Cloud environments like AWS, Google, Microsoft, and other various other applications were rapidly identified as key exposure points because these platforms manage vast amounts of user data and provide essential services. They were especially attractive to attackers who aim to maximize the vulnerability's potential impact.
So for a timeline of the vulnerability, first on November 24th, 2021, a security researcher from Alibaba's cloud security team first reports this vulnerability to the Apache Software Foundation. Then on December 9th, the vulnerability goes public with a group of researchers demonstrating the exploit through a proof of concept. Due to the severity of this exploit, the vulnerability rapidly attracts attention. On December 10th, Apache releases Log4j version 2.15 to address the vulnerability by partially disabling their JNDI lookups. But within 2 days, on December 12th, a new vulnerability is discovered by exploiting certain configurations, which could lead to a denial of service attack. On December 13th, Apache releases version 2.16, completely disabling JNDI lookups to mitigate this new vulnerability. And on December 17th, a new vulnerability is found with a similar denial of service attack. Later that day, Apache releases version 2.17, resolving the denial of service issues. Following the release of this version, exploitation attempts rise drastically worldwide, with attackers specifically focusing on enterprise systems and critical infrastructure. After 2 months of remediation efforts by affected enterprises and systems, CISA, or the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, issued an emergency directive requiring all civilian agencies to address the Log4j vulnerability. That was in February 2022.
So, how did the attackers attack the systems? Attackers exploited the Log4j vulnerability by manipulating the logging feature of the library to execute malicious codes on targeted systems. They achieved this by crafting a specific line of code designed to be logged by applications utilizing Log4j. When this line of code was logged, it triggered Log4j's Java naming and directory interface functionality, which enables Java applications to look up resources such as databases and services. Unfortunately, this functionality was not initially designed with adequate safeguards to block external access, and as a result, attackers could use Java naming and directory interface to connect to a remote server controlled by them, where they could deliver and execute random codes on the vulnerable system. The attack was notably simple, requiring minimal technical expertise, which made it accessible to a broad range of attackers. The ease of exploitation contributed to widespread impact of vulnerability, as even less sophisticated cyber criminals could quickly launch attacks against the vulnerable system. Uh, the combination of the straightforward nature of the exploit and the extensive use of Log4j across various industries amplified the vulnerabilities threat, which led to significant concerns among the organizations worldwide.
So for the impact of the attack, Log4Shell impacted millions of applications globally as this tool was so widely embedded in various software systems. The vulnerability was particularly severe because of its reach in critical infrastructure sectors. This ranged from healthcare, finance, energy, and manufacturing sites. As Log4j was often used in applications and services essential for business operations, the vulnerability exposed countless organizations to potential attacks. Many industry experts refer to this incident as one of the most severe security risks in recent years. So, for its economic implications, it caused significant long-term economic harm. Organizations faced expensive downtime as they scrambled to patch systems and prevent potential breaches. This led to disrupted services, delayed operations, and revenue loss. In some cases, companies were forced to divert resources to emergency patching and mitigation, affecting financial performance. The vulnerabilities detection led many organizations to halt regular operations and prioritize cybersecurity responses. This interruption added a layer of economic pressure, particularly on small and medium sized businesses that may have fewer resources for rapid response. This vulnerability also compromised sensitive data. Criminals who exploited the flaw would potentially access private user information, including personal and financial data. Once exposed, this data would be sold or used to demand ransoms, and attackers might threaten to release or withhold data unless a ransom was paid. The ease of exploitation allowed both sophisticated hackers and the less experienced cybercriminals to compromise vulnerable systems, leading to disruptions across various sectors. The healthcare industry, for instance, faced risks to patient data security, while financial institutions worried about breaches of customer banking information.
How did they mitigate or stop the attacks? So the Apache Software Foundation, which maintains Log4j, quickly released patches to fix the vulnerability. Apache advised all Log4j users to update to the latest version immediately, which included crucial fixes to close the exploit. Over several updates, Apache introduced stricter security settings in Log4j, including disabling the Java naming and directory interface lookup feature by default to prevent similar exploits in the future. Corporate advisories and security monitoring. Companies across industries, especially those in critical sectors like finance, healthcare, and the government, issued alerts and advisories urging immediate updates of Log4j dependent applications. Many organizations enhanced security monitoring during this time, using tools to detect suspicious activity tied to Log4j exploitation. This proactive monitoring aimed to identify any ongoing attacks or vulnerabilities that cyber criminals could still target. And Governments worldwide recognize the severity of Log4j vulnerability and issued advisories to help protect businesses and critical infrastructures. Agencies like the US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency released guidance and emergency directives urging organizations to quickly patch the vulnerability and prevent data breaches, downtime, or other potential damages.
So, in conclusion, Log4Shell vulnerability underscores the importance of quickly managing vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. This incident affected countless organizations, showing how one flaw can lead to widespread consequences. Moving forward, this vulnerability has encouraged the industry to adopt stronger logging and security practices, leading to a more resilient and proactive cybersecurity approach. Lessons from Log4Shell remind us that maintaining security requires constant vigilance and quick actions. In the future security implications, Log4Shell was unique in that it was a minor component that was used as a dependency in millions of applications. This incident brought to light the concern of code dependencies containing exploitable vulnerabilities. This incident led to the use of tools to track dependencies and how vulnerabilities might affect them. As an open source project, Log4j was maintained by a small team, and the Log4Shell incident exposed the issues that can arise when this small team is leveraged heavily within the industry. The time between vulnerability detection and response has led to a greater emphasis placed on vulnerability disclosure and incident response plans. And these are our references. Thank you.
Please contact us if you have any questions regarding the presentation or anything. Thank you.